Hello, beautiful souls. This is Energy Speaks Podcast with your host, Catriel. We have a special guest here today. Her name is Kristin Geeslin. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And thank you ever so much for the opportunity to share Energy Speaks with you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'll just add, since you're going as Catriel, I also have another name. And my other name is Jinpa Lhamo. And that means generosity or charity angel. And that is Tibetan. And I've been having that name for quite a long time now, over 20 years. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And where does that come from?
That is from my Buddhist teachers. I practice Vajrayana Buddhism. And I think that's one of the cool things that we have in common, that we are kind of free, spiritual, intuitive types, but we come out of an extant, wisdom tradition.
I love that. Yes, lots of wisdom between, Buddhism and Judaism. And my rabbi, who's notorious for saying Jubu, and I actually do know a Jubu, so I would love to know more about Buddhism to maybe even incorporate some of that into my own practice.
Oh, that's such a great opportunity for me. Thank you so much. That's so open and sweet. We have people also in my group who were raised Jewish, and then they adopted Buddhism, in the second part of their life. So, so that's something that seems compatible and very attractive for certain people, to blend those together in some way.
Yeah. So, where are we starting?
I think it would be really fun to just do like a really quick, what I would call a mini mindfulness moment, and just center ourselves in a little bit. And when when I started to think about what does that mean, because you hear that a lot, center yourself or center in. And I thought, well, what kind of an anchor can we have for that? And what came to me was that we all have in our bodies 3 channels. One's on the left, one's on the right, and one is in the center. So if we could just take a second and kind of shift our attention out of all the activities that you might be doing as you're listening, and just contact into that energy of the central channel. This is really your main chi reservoir. And that chi is always there for you, present and available. But sometimes we're scattered out and we're not tapping it. So let's just take a breath or two. And just feel that energy. And as we know, that energy flows out of our heads, goes around our bodies, down into the earth, and comes back up again through. And that's known as the torus field. Some of you may have heard that. And what's interesting about it is that you can see it in all of the traditional iconography. When you look at, pictures of any angels, Mary, Jesus, Buddhas, you always see in the background this sort of glowing, usually pictured orange or yellow or white field. And to my understanding, I'm getting it. It's come clear to me that is indeed the torus field. So for, thousands of years, people have been conscious of something that, we can now actually calibrate with electronics. So as we feel this field, around us, through us, let's just know that this is a safe place to be, and that we can relax into our knowingness, both in traditional and in the moment kind of ways, and just bring a little bit of peace into this moment. And one of the mantras that we often do in my practice is ah. So let's just give a little ah. Ah. Maybe let's do 3. Okay, so hopefully you feel a little bit different now than you did before you just took that mini mindfulness moment. And sometimes that's all it takes is just a really little mini mindfulness moment, and you get that energetic reset and get your nervous system reset. And I was getting kind of nervous because I couldn't find my way exactly into the building. And of course, my printer wasn't working right before I came, and I wanted to print the questions. So that's a technique that I use with myself, like a real person having real life, where I say, okay, you're getting stressed out, just like chill. And, even getting here, I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be fun. Let's keep it light. Don't have a stress breakdown, so it takes that, it takes vigilance. And that's part of what's cool about having these traditional systems behind us is that there are, days of the year, special celebrations, all these different things to help us stay awake, and I just feel so privileged and lucky that I connected with something that, clicked for me, that's allowed me to, explore consciousness, but kind of in a way where there's a grounded container to do it, to always fall back on, that's always there for me.
Yes, I love that. And thank you for sharing, your experience coming in here. I also had a very similar experience coming in. I did my best to kind of take a moment for myself this morning, but it wasn't enough, it felt like. And I came in here, and the person was late. At first, I was like, since it is Memorial Day that we're, recording this, I thought, in my mind, I was like, is there a chance that they closed and they didn't tell me? And so I'm going through all this stuff in my mind, and I'm like, no. You need to take a pause, and you need to take your crystals, and you're going to take your Orsoma, and you're going to breathe.
There you go. There you go. That's right. We need our tools. Our tools are part of the program. Absolutely.
And it could be as simple as, those moments where we just take a pause and see what the purpose is, even in that moment, So thank you for doing that mindfulness with us, like that technique, because I needed that.
Awesome. Yeah, we really do. And in our practice, it's recommended that you sort of check in on your frequency level every 7 minutes.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, to be able to really maintain a high level of consciousness, that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, maybe we're lucky if we do it every 7 hours, most people, so.
And do you know why 7?
I don't know. I just have heard that. And when I've been in the presence of my teachers, they're constantly doing things to bring the focus back to practice, which is back to that higher level frequency.
Gotcha.
Making an offering, anything that you say, any story that you're telling. Like recently, there was a person who made their transition in our group who was a loved, beloved member, and I was talking with one of the teachers about it, and she said, "Oh, well, when you think of her, say this prayer or say that prayer." So, there's every opportunity, anything that presents is an opportunity to return to the frequency, place that you really want to hold in your consciousness, that you want to live in. So everything's an opportunity for that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said, what you just said, and I instantly kind of just got a little bit of an energy rush because I really felt Judith with us.
Oh, right. We wanted to talk about Judith. That's right.
Like, I felt her spirit coming very strongly, and I'm like, whoa. So a little backstory for the listeners. Kristin and I both knew this incredible being. She was my mentor. Her name is Judith Hitchman, and brought me on this spiritual journey, really delving in deep. Beautiful soul, and, she passed away in 2019, and this year I was gifted with her toolbox for Orisoma, and I see you have the James Wanless deck with you.
Yes, of course.
Which she taught and actually knew James Wanless. Like, the stories she had, it was incredible.
Well, that's how I got to to Judith was I had been called to use my intuitive abilities in a professional capacity. And I kept applying at this one particular metaphysical store. And so I went there yet again to try to get my foot in the door. I had like a trial day that went great, but they were not hiring me. So I went in yet again, and they said, oh, well, now we have Judith. And she's doing the Voyager deck, and she's been doing this for 30 years or whatever. And they said, and she's offering a certification in the Voyager Tarot. And I thought, okay, look, I have a master's degree. I counted the short sadhana, which takes years. I think I can handle a 3-session certification. I think I'll be signing up. And how much does it cost? Okay, here's my debit card. So I was in like Flint, right away. And there were only 3 people in that particular class with Judith at that metaphysical store. And I was the one that just took like a duck to water to this particular deck. And now I understand why, because I know more about both Judith and James Wanless, as I got to know both of them. Judith had a big background in social work and a degree in religion. And, so she was definitely a spirit and science kind of gal.
Yep.
And so is James Wanless. Okay, he has a PhD in political science, reads like a madman. But he's also way on the creative spirit side. So, now that time has passed, I can see why I was drawn to that deck and to Judith and, how that fits for me, because James actually offered his deck after a certain number of years when mindfulness became popular. And of course, me as a practicing Buddhist, mindfulness, is kind of my jam. So it was just a perfect fit for me, the Voyager deck. And then Judith, of course, Judith was still teaching the Voyager to others, and we actually coordinated a class together. I herded the cats, and I brought my friends to learn, and get the same training that I had gotten from the Voyager at Judith's condo, as a matter of fact.
Yes. So much healing and miracles and everything happened in that condo.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And the way she manifested it too, it was like right at the last minute. I mean, she really wasn't lined up with that metaphysically, and then she had this big job, opportunity that was extremely well paying, and then poof, there was all the money for the condo. It was just like poof, So
Tauruses.
Yeah. And of course, because it was in her program, it was part of what the universe wanted for her to do. And we're not the only ones. There's you and me, and there's at least 2 or 3 others that also really received strong empowerments, from their time with Judith. So, yeah. And this is one of the things that I feel I would like for others who are spiritual seekers and spiritual finders to understand the value and importance of honoring our lineage, and to always remember that, because we're not doing this on our own. We have all these people that have gone before us, and some have like hand carried us, at certain junctures, or opened doors that never would have opened. Like I feel like, having the Voyager, for me, what it was for me, that experience basically became like a yoga workout for all of my clairs. And so it just was a huge opportunity to expand my intuitive abilities far beyond anything I had anticipated was even possible.
Wow. It's funny you should mention ancestors and everything, because the previous podcast was on ancestral healing.
Okay, yeah. Not so odd, okay, yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. How did you integrate your Buddhist practices with all of the tools that that Judith, brought in, and that whole activation?
Yeah, it's not like a cakewalk, because I was with my teachers 2 years ago before the Rona thing happened, and I was drawn to go there, and I spent a month with them. Like, part of me wanted to go to Costa Rica, but my 411 said no, go see your teachers, and I'm so glad I did, because of course this whole cycle that has not been possible. So I've sort of still been living off of teaching and time I spent with them that was coming up on 2 years ago. I ask questions sometimes like, is it okay that I'm doing this? And they're like, okay, well, they don't really like to get into the really esoteric stuff with me, except for the high teachings, within Buddhism.
Yeah.
But I do get a little bit of guidance, like, okay, don't lead anyone the wrong way, which of course I wouldn't anyway. It's like, okay, whatever little sparkle, bell and whistle, intuitive stuff that comes to you, remember, like to me, this is what I think, that needs to be dedicated and part of the bigger picture. Okay, that this is not like a dog and pony show. This is not an entertainment experience. At least I don't like to present my gifts in that way. It usually for me, and this became clear for me quickly, it's part of healing for people. That when something exceptional happens, that feels like it's a paranormal thing through me, it's for the healing of the person that I'm working with, and to also help them just realize there's so much more than what we can see. So sort of in a general way, I like talking about the intuitive and the paranormal experiences that people do have, because it just helps you be more conscious all the time of how unsolid everything is, because our senses are constantly telling us, oh, this is a solid table and I'm a solid eye. And, so anytime, once again, we can remind ourselves. So it's a day-by-day thing, to be honest, because I like doing my traditional practices. I was saying, traditional mantra in the car here because I feel like that clears me and makes me an open channel that's correct for, being in the moment and hopefully saying something that's going to inspire or help someone. But I also, I have to stay engaged too. Okay, that's the other thing. I always need to be learning. So like recently, it took me a long time to get to what we call in our practice the long sadhana. We have like something called the essence sadhana. And now I have to learn that in Tibetan. And it's going to take time. Like I'm not going to be able to just learn that like lickety split. So I have to keep challenging myself. So maybe that's part of, not feeling like one is more attractive than the other. I feel like they complement each other, my own direct experience combined with this traditional container. And it's a dance. I mean, my teachers probably, they've said don't teach. Well, okay, what does that mean? So then I have to go deeper. Teaching is like acting like you know something. Well, it's better to come from a place of, I don't know. I can share my experience, so I'm constantly, they make it more challenging for me to be out in the sort of metaphysical coach intuitive world. They're making me try to do it at a different level, so to speak. And if they weren't there, then I might fall into the drift, which can be not always, the most elevating. So I guess it's good, but also like I feel, it's challenging. It's not that easy. It's not like just straightforward. It's not straightforward.
Right. So, sorry, go
ahead. No, go ahead.
It's so interesting having that foundation of Buddhism and then having these other modalities. Another one of your modalities is theta healing, right?
Yes.
Tell us more about theta healing.
Okay, theta healing just came into my lap. Okay, like and traditionally in Buddhism, like if you're a monk, if you're a full-time monk, which I'm not, I'm a householder, I have a child, I have a cottage, blah, blah. But if you're a monk, you live, like day to day. You go into the village and you beg. You have an open bowl and people put food in your bowl and that's how you live. And it just felt like my bowl was open and theta healing was placed in the bowl.
I love it.
Because I was in a metaphysical store kind of just hanging out one day and somebody comes in and the next thing I know, I'm getting a theta healing training. It just was like bing, bada boom, bada bong. And it was nothing I would have ever pursued. But then when I got into it, I realized, there were, maybe I'm not going to buy like all of this hook, line, and sinker, but the basics of it, the essence of it resonated with me. And so I ended up taking class after class. I've taken like 7 classes, and I took the big one, which is the intuitive anatomy course, which is like preparing you to be a medical intuitive. And I always loved science, so that kind of like when we saw the science videos for that in that class, I was like, oh, science videos. I haven't seen them since 8th grade. I was so excited to see science videos again. But I guess sort of the idea there to me is that theta healing has something both for the left brain and the right brain. You can, and most people need that. You know, if something is too woo, that doesn't work. You know, if it's too 3D, that doesn't work either. You need some kind of modality that's got some of both. And if, you know, a lot of people these days can sign on to, okay, my soul had a contract. A lot of people can believe that, or they do believe that. And I don't know if I believe it exactly like that, but there's definitely, we're drawn to things karmically. You know, we're drawn into things energetically for sure. So then let's say you have a repeating pattern that you would like not to see again because it's not really that fun. With the theta healing, we can work to find out what is the lesson that goes with whatever that thing is that you keep manifesting and get you to own that lesson. And once you really are clear about the skill or competency that went with a shock or a trauma, or whatever the style of the thing was that you did to survive that and still, you know, thrive, then, you know, we can clear out the shock and trauma and then ask for a new download from the universe, however you want to say it. You know, in the theta healing training, they have you use the word creator. But I have also been a prayer chaplain in the past, and yeah, I had this little side trip as a prayer chaplain, even though I'm a Buddhist. And so, you know, we can say, I use whatever terms work for a person. Yeah. If somebody's big with Mary, I'm like, Mary is bringing it. You know, it's like we are going to have Mary here, and Mary is going to get this download happening for you, you know. So let's say a person has like fear or worry around driving, which, you know, some people do. You know, and then we have to go back perhaps to those times when something crazy happened in the car and get underneath that trauma, get down in the dirty, you know, grungy space down in there where you decided I'm not safe in a car. You know, it's always about us. We always make up some kind of story, and we have to find out what that story was. And then say, hey, you know what? I did survive that. I'm here to tell the tale. It would be nice if I could drive more than, 15 minutes from my house. What new story could I tell? Okay, let's mark that lesson as complete. For a while, because I would get too agitated or freaked out if I drove too far, I needed to have that limited. Okay, great. Do you know how to deal with driving 15 minutes away from your house? No. Yes. All right, you got that down? Excellent. All right, let's mark that lesson as complete. And now, from the creator's perspective, would you like to know when to and how to and what it feels like to be able to drive as far and often away from your home as you want? Yes. Then we have a contract. Okay, we've made a contract with the infinite, with the universe, to bring in that new reality. Now, it might not happen turnkey. Sometimes it snaps right in. Sometimes it comes in like little waves, like little gentle waves on the shore. Like the person just takes a little more risk. That's usually how it comes for me, because I think I've programmed my lessons for ease, peace, and ease. I don't like anything too intense, at this point. It's like I've had my intense days. I don't really want to revisit that too much. So I've had people really be able to, let go of old styles of getting through situations that weren't really serving them that great anymore. And that's all it is. We're just upgrading our story. We're doing story upgrades.
I love it. It's interesting. Stuff is sometimes, I don't know why, I have a really good memory, but there's certain times where I just block things out, and I don't know why. It does happen. And of course, that can go along with the whole theta healing, but I also move so quickly too. I also did something very similar to theta healing, but I had no idea what theta healing was. Mm-hmm. I did soul school with Alasa.
Right. It's very, I totally line up with what Alasa says all the time.
Yeah, and so it was so interesting because I was drawn to get a session with you.
Oh, that's right, you did.
I totally forgot about that until this moment.
That's right.
And I will say that, Spirit gave me the perfect person at the perfect time, because I completely forgot all my tools in the toolbox in regards to soul healing. No joke. Like, I was in a very, very toxic situation. I was down and deep, and I was going through whatever that was. And I will tell you, I sat there in the middle of Crescent Lake Park in St. Pete, and I just sat by a tree doing your session. And I feel like it was a turning point in my life.
Oh,
I really do.
Oh, Catriel, that's so touching.
So, like, it's just so interesting, like, how even though we all have different, practices, and somehow they can relate very similarly, still, we're all different on how we use them.
Oh, completely.
And the right person at the right time, And how can that shape someone's life?
Yeah, that's what I wake up in the morning for. Thank you. Well, you made my day. Bam, high five. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the thing. And, that's really what's kept me going, like, throughout my whole entire career. When you can just add that little bit of fairy dust, that little bit of clarity into somebody's reality, and that aha moment, you can foster the aha moment. Oh, my gosh. There's, what else do you want in life? To me, that's perfection.
Yeah.
That's it.
I feel like we just had a full circle moment. I wonder if I went back, if that was around the same time. I feel like it was 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Energy speaks, guys.
Oh, so interesting. Yeah, so interesting. Fascinating. And I'm going to just use this as an opportunity. I really like working with other healers and other spiritual seekers and other leaders of spiritual communities or dance communities, people who are in key positions. Because we're busy. We are busy people. We are getting it done. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, we don't take as great care of ourselves as we need to. And I feel like when I work with people who are in those key positions, I'm able to not just help them, but help all the people that they help. And so I feel like, this is a big, this is a catalytic thing that's, going to spread into more good things. And, that's awesome.
I love that. Oh, man. I just saw, like, this visual. It was almost kind of like a neuron, and a neuron sending messages to the next, and it just rapid fire.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that thing. So, and then I really feel, this is how, like, my Dharma practice, I feel that the best sparkle I can bring is from this lineage, because it's an extant lineage from Buddha Shakyamuni. It's you can count the teachers. We know who the lineage is,
right?
And so it's still alive. It's a living tradition, and it's mostly an auditory tradition. It's mostly passed mouth to ear. So the teachings are like that. Yes, you can read books, but my teachers encourage us not to do that. Really. They're like, do the prayers, do the practice, and then watch your life. Watch your own movie, see what happens, and you follow the instructions of the teacher, because they're shepherding you, hand carrying you. Go to the left, 3 steps to the right, and that's very like non-Western, and people are like, oh, you have a teacher, whatever. And it's so whatever. We like to do everything on our own, individualistic, rebellious. But I was the biggest rebel on the planet, I have to tell you. There was no one more rebellious than me.
Oh, boy.
And that's why it took me so long to get this second prayer. I've been in the practice for 30 years, and it took me a really long time before they're like, okay, say a few more Vajrasattvas, 5,000 more Vajrasattvas, then you can sit at the big kids table, but the big, the grown-ups table. But it took me a long time because, I came out of crazy town. My family was really open and lovely in certain ways, but a lot of compulsive activity, either compulsive working, compulsive drinking. And when I did that foundational practice, it takes, like most Westerners, 3 to 5 years to complete this prayer recitation. It's like, you're counting like 115,000 recitations of certain prayers, like 5 different, it's big. It's a big, long commitment. So although I still didn't behave perfectly, and still not, after that, I was, at least after that was done, my aspirative intention was much better. at least I had an idea where to shoot. Like, I didn't even know what, before that, I didn't even know what would be ideal in terms of what energy I brought to a situation, or what was going on in my emotional life, or what would be, how to frame, whatever, peace and happy. That was not part of my thing. I mean, maybe in a abstract way. It was abstract, but I didn't have much functional skill set there. So then, once your intention gets to a certain point, then your functional skill set can really, start to come in. Like we have this opportunity to learn these modalities and meet Judith. It's like, you set this intention, and then somebody comes along and says, okay, and this is how you do it. I'm wearing my protective stone here in my heart chakra because Judith told me to. This was an instruction, and she had given me a piece of kyanite to go over my heart chakra, and it broke at a certain point, and it was gone. And so I had been going around without anything there. And now this one is not kyanite. This is another one that she told me. I can't remember what it is right now.
Is it shungite?
No, I don't think it's shungite. It's another one. And so she said, it was written on a piece of paper. I had it on a note that I've had all this time. Yeah, and so I just actually sent to London for this, and so now I have it over my heart chakra where it should be.
Wow.
But, this is how we manage, because as an empath, if you're not conscious of what's going on with your own energetic thing, then you can suck up everybody else's, negative stuff. And that's the other thing. I feel like having that spiritual container helps me stay clearer and cleaner as an empath. That it's just easier to kind of keep my own frequency more aligned with what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. Being a empath is big.
Yeah.
Actually, our first episode was second episode, first guest. He spoke about being an empath and everything. It looks like we're going to choose a card for the collective.
At least a couple cards.
Yeah.
Right now we're recording a little before you're going to hear the show. Right now we're at the beginning of the Mercury retrograde, and this one's in Gemini, and I think it's going to stir up a lot of deep stuff. This one is going to affect relationships and transportation, and I know for me, there's like a little list of things I need to take care of. So we'll imagine that, fast forward 3 or 4 weeks, those kind of things probably are getting resolved. And now there's like some new available energy for you to, people are kind of trying to recreate their lives after this Rona retreat. And so let's see what, I use 3 decks pretty much all together in a bowl. I put it in a baking bowl. I call it the baking bowl of belief. Okay, because as we know, everything that we're manifesting is coming out of our beliefs. And so I'd like to pull 3 cards for the collective about how to kind of, harness some of the new direct energy once Mercury goes direct, and maybe start to integrate some of the lessons that we learned during Rona with our, kind of changed up lifestyles. What do we want to bring forward? And even though maybe we could go back to what we had before, maybe some yes and some no. So I'm going to pick first a card about that discernment. How can we be clear about what we want to bring forward going into the new phase and what to leave behind? Oh, interesting. This is really interesting because out of the 3 decks, this is the Sustain Yourself deck, okay, that I use. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's all about nature, and it has animals, and it's showing me sheep and population. Okay, those are the 2 words on this card, and it's a whole bunch of sheep. So, maybe part of what the message is, this is what comes to me, is that going forward, we are more aware than ever that we are living in a global village, okay, and that what happens here in the United States affects the Philippines, which affects Russia. We are in one big village. So if we can all try to hold that in consciousness more frequently, as we move forward with whatever we're doing and how we're interacting in the world, and, what we choose to put our energy into. And I've actually had some different things happening just in terms of identity. Like, I have German heritage, and I was hearing these, kind of traditional European people freaking out because, they feel their pure lineage is being watered down. And I think it's important for us to own the extant traditions, and I'm also Irish, so I care about, Celtic stuff. Like, I want to own all of the richness and the fun of that, but at the same time, simultaneously, not being attached to any of that as my true identity. That my true identity is that I am an energy form, and I've got this little time as Kristin Geeslin between 1963 and whenever, and this is just like a tiny blip on the radar screen of reality and time. So why be freaked out about what the outer wrapper is? That's just really doesn't make a bit of sense. It's really, the more I gain more peace and more serenity from being in contact with that energy flow. So going forward, let's all be just a bit more conscious that we are part of a global village. That's what I would say that message is. All right, let's see what's coming next. Maybe, I feel like people are going to be looking for grounding because it's been a little ungrounding. I know today I was a little ungrounded, but a little ungrounding to be having all these people transitioning and the sort of stuff happening where, there's been a loss of control in people's lives. They didn't know if their kids were going to be in school, not be in school. Am I working? Am I not working? Am I working from home? I mean, there's been a lot of that. So let's see how we can find some ground again. Oh, more sustain yourself. That's so interesting. Okay, so this is cute. This is like, don't even try to ground yourself. The card that comes out is transformation and the caterpillar. So you're really, this is a time to kind of, this feels like an energetic quality to me, to sort of expand into whatever the positive things were that you were drawn to during this Rona. Whatever happened during the Rona that made you a better person, made you feel better, helped your family, helped your workplace, whatever that was. Interesting that 2 sustain yourself cards. I'm not looking. Catriel can tell you I'm not looking. I just have my hands in the bowl. James Wanless, who has been a great mentor to me and so many other people over many years, says hands have eyes. And that's how I do my pulling cards. I always don't look and just hands have eyes. Okay. Oh, of course. And now we're getting one of from the Voyager deck, and it's the card for balance. And it's just got this really beautiful above is below design. There's a crystal above and a crystal below. And the crystal above is like, it looks like it's a woman's face, and it has like a light cross, the vertical and horizontal. So that's a couple messages to me that I was thinking about equanimity actually on the way here. That the only way we really can sort of be in contact, with the higher subtle energies on a regular basis is to be able to maintain equanimity in our reactions to whatever's going on. Not getting too excited, not getting too bummed out, not being too irritated when the traffic does crazy things or when we miss our exit, to try to, stay in that middle ground. And balance to me is not like a weighing balance where the 2 sides of the scale are equivalent, but where hopefully you're not getting clang, clang, clang. If you can keep the 2 scales just sort of moving up and down a little bit, like a dynamic equilibrium, that you're doing good, real good.
That. Do you mind if I pick a card?
Oh, please.
I want to pull this one. I've noticed I have a very interesting perspective on Mercury retrograde. But I kind of want to pull one in reference to what activations are coming out of Mercury retrograde.
Excellent.
Let's see here. Oh, seek, live your destiny, climb higher, onwards and upwards. Whoa. And it has a white squirrel in a tree. Wow. So guys, really get clear on what you want to create and where you want to put your energy. And I feel that not necessarily seeking, but being able to identify, because sometimes seek,
read the bottom words. See what the bottom words say.
It says, live your destiny.
Okay, live your destiny.
Climb higher, onwards and upwards. And that more so indicates to me that it's illuminated.
Right.
You know? Rather than you going and seeking and finding.
Right. Like the way is there. The ways are already there, and it's just up to us to be present with it, to notice it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So just pay attention, guys, and it shall be illuminated for you.
Cool.
I love that.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you. Do you want to, are we putting them in?
We'll put them back, sure. And so there's 3 decks that I use in the baking bowl generally, and I have other decks, but I'm not like a big deck collector because I get a lot of messages and I don't need the cards, but I love them anyway.
I love it.
But the Voyager really was a great like workout for intuition. And interesting, the Death card came out, which is like I probably am going to be doing more messaging and fewer cards. That's funny. And I have my own coaching system too. I've worked out. Yeah. So these tools really opened a lot of doors for me, both the Voyager world and the Theta healing. But that's what that reminded me of is during the course of I started working and professionally helping people when I was 20 at a drug and alcohol rehab, and I'm 57. So wow. I've worked in a lot of places and seen a lot of things. And one of the things I learned when I was working with little kids, which was part of my experience, was that when we're trying to figure out like what's going on with us, it's great to start with your body. Because like with little kids, like let's say they have a speech impediment. If they don't speak on time and properly, then they get frustrated and then they start hitting other kids because they can't communicate, and now they have a behavior issue. But maybe it went back to actually they were tongue-tied and that's why they weren't speaking properly. I know. Or, yeah. So it's a good idea to remember, hey, we have bodies, yeah, okay, and they have functions, and sometimes they work great and sometimes they don't work so great. So when we're trying to really understand what's happening with ourselves, starting with our body is always a great idea. You know, what's going on? You know, am I getting enough nutrition? Are my minerals good? Am I getting exercise? Am I getting enough, live chi foods? What's going on? Like paying attention to that. Am I sleeping good? What's going on? So that's the first place to start if you're trying to figure out where you're at, you know. And then I say the next stop is the emotions, okay? Because the emotions are they kind of create winds of their own. They kind of like create a culture, an environment. And if you're trying to think clearly or get something done, but there's all this like emotional energy flowing around, that can be tough. It can be really tough. Plus, it distorts, I think, the way you perceive data coming in sometimes. We don't see the data as clearly. Then we have the intellect, which we love our intellects here in the West, don't we? I have a couple of degrees. People tell you their kids go to college, learn the things, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, that's good. But then later we find out that the wisdom is coming through our heart. Okay, so then we're like, okay, I like that intellect, but you know what? That is just there to help me do what the heart is telling me to do. Okay, it's not like really the program director. All right, good to know. But that is not so easy, when you grew up in a culture where it was everything had to be evidence-based and data it's got to be all data. So I can do data. I have the right training for that. And I love me some good data. Okay, don't get me wrong. It's good stuff. But it only takes you to a point. All right. Then we have the spirit or soul. Okay, what's going on with that energy that you might have brought from a prior lifetime? Or if you're not a prior lifetime believer, what's going on with your spark? You got any spark in there? Are you feeling alive? And then finally, I like to use the M, mastermind, for our relationship with spirit or the universe. What's going on with our sense of higher power, God, that kind of energy level. And so I kind of worked out this little system that I use when I meet people and I'm trying to help them get to wherever they want to go. I can use this sort of like a diagnostic, or it's a great way to do a reading. A lot of times I do what I call B'ism readings, and I'll use the deck to sort of see how things are. Or as I'm working with people with the theta healing or just general coaching, I use it to kind of keep double checking. So like if something shows up in the S spot in the B'ism, and then I'm doing theta healing and it shows up in the S spot in the theta healing, the soul spot, then I know, okay, we definitely got to work over there. I like having these sort of little cross checks, to make sure we're using our time and our energy to the best advantage.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. You painted a really cool picture. I liked it.
Oh, thank you. Good. Yeah. So I'm really hoping to grow this system more, and I feel like it can be helpful for either like licensed mental health people who are kind of in the regular, traditional environment, or woo people who kind of need a little more structure. Either way.
Yeah.
And so I have some people that would like to learn more, and that's really my big challenge now, is having the creative free time to,